So our next session this morning is the tactical transport. And I know that you're going to hear some correlation to this last session in this discussion here in a few minutes. And I believe you will see the correlation to the special sauce. Our speaker is CWO4. I didn't ask, Imedine? Okay, Imedine Rivera, who I've heard through the grapevine is the troubleshooter for the MEF. He's at the 1st Marine Expeditionary MEF. He works within the G6 arena. He's enlisted in the Marine Corps and was assigned to the Communication Electronics School in 29 Palms as a student. As some of you heard earlier, he became a radio operator and spent part of his early career at Camp Pendleton with the 5th Marines. He quickly became a radio supervisor, then a radio chief, and deployed with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force and participated in Iraqi Freedom 2003. He was a member of HMX-1. Many of you know that's the command function that provides transportation for the president. And he also has been in multiple other missions associated with that billet. He was selected as a warrant officer in 2014, and he's been in those leadership positions ever since. So he's going to give us an overview of what it's like to be in the MEF G6 talking about tactical transport. And I know we're starting a little bit early, so we may not have some of the audience members that'll join us, but we'll go ahead and get started with that. Thank you.
All right, so looks like we're pressed for time, so that's perfect because my remarks are short, and I have no slides, so it'll be quick. Before I get into the formal remarks, I'd like to say two things. One is I'm not going to be as eloquent as Colonel Winters. I'm an inner city kid from the Bronx, former gunny, field radio operator, so everything I can offer you has to do with the grind and the trenches. So that's my context when I begin to read here. The other thing is, although I might look like the Marine Corps, I don't speak for the Marine Corps. I am representing one MEF, and I speak at the pleasure of Colonel Ford, my G6. So with those disclosures, I'll begin to do my formal remarks here. So good morning. Excited to be here today and share with you all how we're thinking about moving information across the battle space in increasingly challenged and dynamic environments. Thank you for the opportunity to address this distinguished group of government and business leaders alike. Looking forward to meaningful discussion. My name is Chief Warrant Officer 4 Rivera, and I'm currently serving as a Space and Warfare Integration Officer at 1 Marine Expeditionary Force under the G6. The core of my responsibility is largely to facilitate the movement of information across the battle space by whatever means may be available to a Marine across all echelons of command. I've been responsible for moving information in support of our most disadvantaged nodes for over 22 years. The most disadvantaged node is our baseline, and everything we do must support their success. Over the years, one fact consistently rings true. Connectivity underpins our force's ability to effectively sense, shoot, sustain, and maneuver across a spectrum of military operations. Now more than ever, our connectivity options are held at risk by capable adversaries that understand our dependency and seek to disrupt our information overmatch. Although, this is a key point, although the realities of the threat picture may seem daunting, we should be precise in our messaging and at all costs avoid creating a culture of fear and self-denial. The reality is our toolbox for countering these credible threats is expansive and diverse. However, it requires a fresh look at how we think about and enable our tactical transport. Our commandant in a recent podcast said, we have to link the individual Marine on the ground to special operations forces that are already forward. It struck me that he didn't say we have to link a regiment or joint task force. He said the individual Marine. The proliferation of sensor and precise strike platforms demand a mature and diverse enabling capability for disaggregated connectivity that extends to our most disadvantaged nodes. General Berger went on to say, we have to be the first link in the kill chain. He once again used the word link to describe the imperative for connectivity. I would argue that the link is not a singular waveform or network or band or any other key technology. The link is what we would call tactical transport. Over the past few years, 1 and 2 MEF have aggressively sought out capacity and capability that will enable critical information exchanges at relevant speeds to forces distributed across large swaths of geography. We leverage our geographic proximity and relationships with the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab, the Marine Corps Tactical Systems Support Activity, Naval Information Warfare Center, Pacific, and industry partners to rapidly integrate technologies in relevant tactical scenarios that may give our commanders a competitive advantage in an informatized war. Tactical transport underpins our force's ability to deliver combat power in the form of critical information exchange at relevant speeds. The tactical transport is not a platform. It's not a single network. It is a diverse portfolio of transport options that can be terminated and federated at key sites across the globe. It includes the electromagnetic spectrum, commercial and military space and its orbits, commercial internet service providers, distance teleport or teleports, and their their optical backbone, commercially contracted digital backbone, and regional base area infrastructure, among others. A robust, agile, and more importantly, integrated tactical transport directly contributes to our commander's ability to compete and achieve information overmatch in challenged geography and dynamic tactical environments. The advancements of optical relays, full terminal mobility, high-throughput satellites, software-defined modems, proliferation of new orbits, industrial iteration speed, and vertically integrated supply chains make the tactical transport the indispensable ecosystem necessary for achieving asymmetric advantage in conflict and credible deterrence in competition. The components of tactical transport, whether space, electromagnetic spectrum, or infrastructure, are all maneuver space, and combined provide a system that serves to preserve and protect what our commandant called the vital link that enable our forces' ability to sense and make sense of what's in front of us. The dilemma for the adversary is not any single key technology. It is the diversity of options available to a commander on the ground at any given time. Why do we call it tactical transport? It boils down to 2 words: agility and responsiveness. In order to effectively maneuver in the tactical transport ecosystem, we must be able to make decisions at the point of friction and respond to credible indications and warnings in a timely manner. Our responses will be based on the denied or disrupted spacecraft, orbit, channel, waveform, circuit, which would likely be sensed by our maneuver forces first. The tactical transport is online today. Some may call it a web, a grid, a network. It is essentially an integrated and interconnected information environment that has matured over time and continues to adapt as we posture for competition. The vast majority of how we approach this tactical transport has been defined and refined over the last few years in exercises and deployment. Most notably, the lessons learned from Marine Warfighting Exercise 321 confirmed that maneuvering across orbits, bands, waveforms, networks, and circuits based on the developing threat picture not only increased survivability to our maneuver forces, but also generated tempo in an environment where timely understanding of the battle space directly translated to decisive lethal actions. NWX 321 pitted a Marine Division minus against a reinforced infantry regiment in a total force of about 8,500 Marines. An excerpt from the official after action reads, the GEO and LEO capabilities afforded the X-4 greater transport diversity across orbits, constellations, specific on-orbiting capabilities, and a greater number of spacecraft within each constellation. The emissions bands, specifically commercial and military KA bands and waveforms, enhanced the division's ability to increase their resiliency against adversary sensing, direction finding, interception, geolocation, and jamming capabilities. Most recently, we saw similar results during the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit's Western Pacific deployment, in which the MU leveraged the full concept of transport diversity by tapping into commercially provisioned SATCOM services, MIL-SATCOM resources. This is Layer 3 virtual private network, a commercially contracted multi-point label switching network to diversify their transport options. This transport agility gave the MU an array of choices that allowed their commander the flexibility and responsiveness to cover concurrent disaggregated missions in AFRICOM and CENTCOM in significantly disadvantaged geography. This agility is largely a result of pre-staging efforts to terminate and federate key sites across the globe that enable the forces to close the last digital mile. Similar to how our sustainment brethren prepositions materials in preparation for the fight, we must set the theater in the information environment by a concept of preposition. The tactical transport is not domain and service. The tactical transport is domain and services agnostic. It does not care what data traverses over it. It is not a program of record, and it does not require a program manager. It is an environment of opportunity where all options are welcome, so long as it's the most effective option based on the environment. It has matured, proliferated, and federated over many years as operational requirements develop. These efforts have had many contributing factors, but have not been exclusively led by a person, a charter, or directive. Although key disruptors have tilted these efforts from concept to practical application, many of the solutions currently in place have organically been born out of operational necessity and technical efficiency. The advent of persistent connections to the Department of Defense information networks back in the mid-2000s changed the way the Fleet Marine Forces deployed tactical environments, from episodic exercise-specific servers and network builds to enduring and consistently adapting information environments. These efforts over the years have been responsible for a number of noteworthy milestones that include, but are not limited to, the MXN extension over tactical transport, NIPR wireless, SATCOM as a service, among others. Although these efforts have yielded demonstrable operational capability in deployed environments at scale, the fact remains, these projects are now well-resourced, lack sustainability. However, an objective view at the catalog of existing and emerging capabilities currently in place might consider these projects a worthy cause to explore, develop, and mature at the speed of relevance. Thank you for providing me this opportunity to speak today. I look forward to any questions. Like I said, I have no slides, So I find that most of the meaningful outcomes that happen in engagements happen in non-scripted engagements. So if there's questions, I would love to take some. I know I threw a lot of a lot of terms in there that were technical and might not make sense to most people, but I'm happy to have discussions if anybody's willing to or have any questions.
Test. Okay. Hi, Rick. Good to see you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Good.
question. I'm sure you've heard that there is a premise out there that the MEFs should be solely focused on transport. Network battalions, McCog, higher should be focused on networking, data systems, servers, that kind of thing, especially with the idea of the DMXN, which I know you love. And so, what do you think about that? What do you think we're going to ever get to that? Do you think we need to get to that? Do you think we need to, the tactical level can only do transport, needs to stay out of the other business, or what are your thoughts?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
That's a tough one. Here's what I would say. I would say this. There's gonna always be a healthy tug of war between understanding and protection and agility and responsiveness. And those two things are kind of compete, because in order for you to have kind of a broad understanding of things, you have to have control, right? So you have to have control, but if you centralize control at the wrong echelon, you stifle or erode the maneuver force's ability to move when indications and warnings demand movement, whether it's moving across frequency bands, across different waveforms, across different spacecraft, different orbits, or using host nation infrastructure. We have to have the agility to be able to make those decisions where that activity is happening. So those indications and warnings are going to feed us, and we should be able to act in response. So I'll leave it at that, I think. Yeah, sure. Hopefully that answered some of it. Thank you for the question. Sure.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
My name is Colonel Ford. I'm the 1MEF G6. I think we work together.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for participating on the panel, because I put you on because you're the smartest man in the Marine Corps to talk about this topic, right? There is no better subject matter expert on this than you. So I'd like you to expound a little bit on some of the conversations we've had about what you're seeing with commercial SATCOM and their enhanced abilities for jam resistance, and what do they offer when juxtaposed next to mil SATCOM when you talk about capacity? And I'd like you to talk a little bit, is it one or the other, or is it both? That's thing one I'd like you to talk about. And then I'm going to bail you out a little bit on DMXN. The MEF supports DMXN wholeheartedly, and we are keen to move to it once it demonstrates itself as a viable combat capability. Today, it is absolutely not. It is not. That said, we are aggressively working with the service to move forward to make DMXN what it needs to be. But you have to have freedom of action and maneuverability, not only in your tactical transport, but in your network itself. And having the tactical unit just focus on transport takes away too much freedom of action and all those things you need to do on the network. We're not going to outsource that. So DMXN will be a solution that enables the tactical commander to maneuver that network as he needs, while gleaning all the benefits and efficiencies of an enterprise. But again, over to you.
Sir, thank you. So, on the question about commercial SATCOM or commercial industry altogether, and how is that, how does that, tie into, this tactical transport? In my view, is complementary. It is not a substitute of. The reality is that I think everybody would understand and agree that our requirements generation process and the POM cycles that we're kind of tied to are limiting in iteration speed. And so we're not able to adapt with industry. And so we have to find other means by which we generate capability and deliver that capability at the relevant time, and the relevant time is this window, this transition period between 2022 and 2027, where there's a lot of experts out there that think that we're going to get called to compete, and so the what industry provides us is significant iteration speed that we can benefit from and repurpose with low overhead to military applications. So that's one, sir. The other thing is there's a level of, and so this is a conceal reveal part of this that I kind of play smartly with, but there's two buckets. The way I think about this, there's two buckets. There's a protection bucket, and then there's an obfuscation bucket, and both of those buckets have to be in the equation as we navigate the space environment, the EMS environment, and host nation infrastructure, or DISA, DOTA infrastructure. All of those things inherently impose cognitive and technical costs to the adversary. There's not going to be any single silver bullet, not the most cool waveform that we can come up with, not new orbits, not key infrastructure. All those things are going to be held at risk at different levels. What we want to do is expand the surface area to impose costs, cognitive and technical, on the adversary, for him to expend that capacity on things that we might not be completely reliant on, because we are creating maneuver space in the EMS and in space and across infrastructure to get our critical information to where it needs to get to. And we have to create that. We talk about unmanned systems, for example. Sir, by the way, are you going to kind of give me okay. Yeah, because they know I'll just talk for days. And unmanned systems, right? We talk about that. Unmanned systems are some of the most connectivity intensive platforms out there. They have to connect to a man or some kind of heavy server that has ML or some other thing. Those things cost power. It costs space, logistical space, and so we have to offload those things somewhere else. We can't put them in the air. So those unmanned systems are going to demand connectivity. And right now, if there's a single vector that platform is depending on for connectivity, it will be targeted and it will be largely rendered useless very quickly. So that diversity in spectrum and waveforms and orbits is absolutely crucial for us to be able to compete and persist. Sir?
Speaking of unmanned systems, so currently a lot of the Group 1 through 3 are operating on a waiver for type encryption. Is that something that is on your radar to address? Eventually we want to get the form factor crypto down to the point where it can go on those smaller U.S. platforms?
Absolutely. I think that the encryption question, it continues to be a concern, and especially if there's this expected disconnection from the mothership or the cloud or the reach back or whatever it is, end-to-end encryption at the local region level is key, and right now form factor is in compatibility, both of those, form factor and compatibility, some of the key limiting factors for us to be able to proliferate NSA type 1 encryption. So yes, I think we definitely need to work towards reducing everything, not just encryption, but that's the demand across the board is low power, low form factors, disaggregated nodes. So yes, hopefully that answered your question.
All right, we're working on it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good afternoon, or good morning, and first off, thanks for the brief, really helpful. George Malcation with AT&T, and also, I appreciate you putting up with Colonel Ford, so, I understand how that is.
Yes, sir.
But great discussion, and really appreciate your approach to this, the blending of both the military and the commercial side on communications. I know you talked a lot about the SATCOM piece. Are you also looking at cellular? And I have two actual questions for you. Is we look at host nation support, and even though we may be in a DDIL environment, it still may be a permissive environment, right? And like you said before, is pre-positioning or caching these kinds of resources to help on the transport side. The second part of that is one of the things we've been working with the 2MEF as well, and one of the things that always comes up is those transport requirements, right? How are you all approaching the information requirements? There's a lot of talk, and a lot of folks will talk business mission area that probably isn't necessarily the commander's priority when you're overseas, and you're looking at how you're prioritizing that traffic and making sure that you're getting the most out of the transport, because the transport may not be as robust as we have now. Just curious your thoughts on that, and whether or not we're setting ourselves up for success, or if we're kind of following something that we may not be able to actually execute. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I'll take the last question first because it's fresh, and then I'll talk about cellular specifically. So the way we're thinking about it is the way that Christian Bros described it in the Kill Chain book. It's track warfare. It's about sensing, making sense, having high quality target data, and then delivering that high quality target data with the appropriate authorities to a precision strike platform that can actually reach out and touch that thing. That's the if CMS, I love CMS by the way, Cisco Manager, or VTCs or share portals, all that stuff. That's great for collaborative, but at the end of the day, if I have a chat window and I can move quality track data that in the messaging format that shooting platform can understand, that's the game, and we've just attrited, or we just imposed costs, and that gives us, essentially extends our critical survivable time. So at the end of the day, it's about track warfare and how do we move that key information that's going to enable us to sense and deliver the high quality target data at relevant speeds. So hopefully that answers that. On the LTE side, or cellular side, I think one of the things that we're wrestling with is the geography that we are dealing with is expanse. It's an expansive geography. There's not a lot of places to put retrans sites. We can't really fly a relay platform at 30,000 feet with confidence. Balloons are interesting, but we're fighting the jet stream. So there's a lot that we're trying to play with to make sure that we have these cellular capabilities. But if we have to traverse significant geography, the curvature of the earth is going to kick our butt. And so we have to contend with that. For like a host nation, so the competition phase, not the conflict phase, but the competition phase, there's a lot of opportunity there to essentially go in and boil the frog, if you will, from activity perspective, right? So you just kind of, again, conceal, reveal, right? How much should we talk about this? But there's this opportunity space to use, so long as we have hate-beat NSA Type 1 encryption on the back end, there's opportunity space for us to use host nation, cellular, 5G, all these things, in kind of localized regional environments where we might be able to benefit from that. When it comes to cross-regional inter-theater lift, inter-theater connectivity, we're going to have some kind of beyond line of sight capability, or think about the infrastructure and how do we tap into that infrastructure that's available to us real time. Does that answer your question, sir? Any more questions? Thank you for having me. Oh.
I'd like you to tie in space to your discussion that you just had, and where you think the Marine Corps might be going with that. That's one aspect of it. The other is, how do you see your role linking with aviation command and control from the MEF perspective?
Sir, so on the space question, I appreciate the question, sir. On the space question, we from a fighting space perspective, we don't have a dog in that fight. That's Space Force. They got that domain. They're going to take care of it. We have high confidence they're going to come through for us. But we're heavy users, and everything we're talking about, sustainment, precise fires, intelligence gathering by way of distributed sensors, all that stuff is underpinned largely by space. And so the way I think about it is, just like we do PACE plans at the company level between, HF, VHF, UHF, we have to think about pacing in space as well. And so that means all the orbits that are available to us, those we have to use. All the MIL-SATCOM that's available to us, we will tap into that. All the high throughput satellites that are, on orbit and operating, we will take advantage of their ability to put, for example, recolor spectrum inside of a beam, where the nulling capabilities now render a high power jammer useless, because we have technology that can essentially null that area what we care about, or we don't even put a beam over that geography because we know there's threats there. So that level of agility, that's the industry part of this. So again, I think I'll leave it at the most basic level is thinking about space as pacing in space across orbits, across waveforms, and across bands. So using X all the way through EHF, and also stacking that with different waveforms, that if one is held at risk, or we know some credible intelligence is out there against that one waveform, we can maneuver without having to write new requirements. And so that's what how I think about space. On the air command and control part of that question, I think we are enablers to that. And so our responsibility to the command and control effort is assured connectivity, is ensuring that they can move that critical information by whatever means is available, and not coming up with the exquisite capability that we bank on, but expecting to hit on a waveform on a circuit, expecting that that's going to be denied, and still have an array of options that we can maneuver in, whether it's in the spectrum or in space, or space is denied, spectrum's denied, and then we go into the infrastructure and we use the backbone that's available to us, whether it's host nation, DISA, commercially contracted, whatever it is all of those things. Did that answer your question, sir? Yes. Sir.
So could you talk about, the Marine Corps is really moving out, and we're really dynamic, and I have my opinions. Is the Navy keeping pace? Right. We've had a MUOS constellation in the sky, 12 years? Right? Who's on MUOS right now? If we're going to be a naval force, do you see an imbalance there?
Yes, sir. I'm glad you asked this so I can answer with confidence. Naturally, we're just like industry outpaces everybody, because there's a stockholder, there's profits and returns that they're concerned with. So they develop and generate and innovate just like that. The Navy has platforms, and they think of their ship a giant platform. So if you change the widget here, you have to change the baseline, and therefore the lag time kind of increases. And so, are they keeping pace? I think that the course correction across the enterprise is happening, but it's just like it's like a Titanic course correction. How long does it take before they get on the right path? Everybody understands the urgency by which we have to enable capacity and capability. I think that the Navy would be, would benefit from this kind of hybrid approach of using the program of record, but also augmenting the gaps with pure commercial capabilities, so long as the threat assessment is done, and using that as competitive advantage that that industry can pipe in capability at the point of need. So I think that's the safest answer, sir, I can give. Sir, thank you. Okay.
we have a lot of trainers that are in the audience today, specifically on the Marine Corps side. But tell me about warrant officer training and your the IT the side of the training that you experienced as you've grown to where you are today. Is it good enough? Does it need to be better? Is there a problem that needs to be addressed? And let me just tie it just one more step to the joint community, because I think you're a breed of your own, and I work a lot with the Army right now in my suit and tie days, and they have full trust and confidence in their technical chief warrant officers that they put in all major commands. But I want to start with the training aspect first, and then how broad are you across the Marine Corps and of your talent, and then maybe how you see yourself compared to the other services.
Compare to other services. I would say, just like the requirements part of the conversation in terms of the course correction that needs to happen, and it is happening, in the requirements generation process, the procurement process, how we generate contracts, all that's happening. We are on the right path. I think academia is just a little bit ahead of that. And I feel that the course correction that the training pipelines are doing today to meet those challenges that we just talked about are on the right track. There's the right people in the right seats making the right decisions. But inevitably, you're going to have institutional inertia with the procedural, requirements that we have to kind of, generate these things through. So I think we're on the right path. I think the formal pipeline education is important, and we should absolutely continue to resource, if not increase the resourcing for that pipeline. But I think it's also important to do these kind of one-off at the fleet level, information exchanges and lessons learned. A lot of the stuff that I've come across has been interdisciplinary. In other words, I talk to a 2800 Sigener about something. He has perspective, and it feeds my lens of the world, the Blue Force protection enabling lens of the world. And so cross-functional teams and cross-functional exchanges are just as important as the maturing of the kind of pipeline of the different communities. So I would say that the training that I received was circuit switching and prominence that are all gone, and so a lot of my learning over the years has been in the practice of the art. So, sir, thank you.